and welcome back to the Power Accountability League. I am your pal Dan L. This is my channel. And will we ever learn whether or not I am related to Kal-El? I don't know if we'll ever find out the answer to that question. I think thousands of years, eons in the future, historians, politicians, theologians, philosophers, they will be pondering that question. Great minds, great thinkers in the future will be wondering, was Dan L. related to Kal-El? We may never know the answer. All right, today's video is entitled Chain of Custody. Before I go any further in this video, I want to recommend the Epoch Times has a video, at least they did have a video on their website, which was an interview with the Data Integrity Project. You should watch this video. And this is before the chain of custody became a very popular phrase in American culture, and it is. You might have heard it for a microsecond from the mainstream media, but it's out there. Social media, etc. Chain of custody. Anyway, but first, like I said, go check out the Epoch Times website, or you can Google this or use DuckDuckGo or some other search engine. But find the video where the Epoch Times interviews the people at the Data Integrity Project, and that is going to be extremely important for you to watch that video because there's a lot of great information. So let's get right to it. Like Jen Psaki, I got to circle back around to the subject matter. Chain of custody. What is chain of custody? Why is it a popular phrase? Well, there's an audit going on in Maricopa County, Arizona, and I think they might be starting some audits in other places. I think there's the possibility of an audit in Fulton County, Georgia. I think that's like Atlanta. Anyway, you'll have to double check me on all this stuff. So the point is, the audit in Arizona has been revealing, and it's been revealing stuff that anyone paying attention to for the last, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 10,000 years. Anyone who's been paying attention to the human race for a long period of time will say, yeah, I'm not surprised that we're having some integrity issues with the November. Anyway, so the audit in Arizona is important because they're discovering irregularities. That's what I like to call cheating or corruption with the chain of custody documents. What is a chain of custody document? Why do we have them? A chain of custody document is a record of what happened to your ballot once you cast it. That is, you can go into a polling location, fill out your ballot, who you're going to vote for, fill in the little circles, and then I'm guessing either you give it to a machine, which I hate because machines are actually more corruptible than humans. I know that sounds bizarre, that a machine is more corruptible than a human, but it's easier to tamper with the machine than it is with the person. So anyway, so you go in and vote at a polling location. Maybe you put it in a machine, or you give it to a poll worker, maybe, or maybe you did mail-in voting. We know how many millions of mail-in votes and why, because in 2020 the government decided we're just going to mail a vote to every address in the books. That's not. The Constitution says the state legislatures, individual, that's 50 state, 50 state legislatures get to decide how they conduct their elections in their state. So Florida gets to decide, Pennsylvania gets to decide, New York, Illinois, California, Texas, Oklahoma, Montana. Yeah, I think you get it. Every state in the union decides how they conduct their elections. But it's the legislature which makes the rules. Well, in 2020, it was the executive branch, which is the governors and the mayors. The governors decided how they're going to conduct, and the judicial branch, which is supposed to be a check on the executive branch usurping power from the legislative branch. The judicial branch is supposed to stop the usurping of power between branches. But of course, the judicial branch itself has usurped power from the legislative and judicial branch, and the executive branch. So the judicial branch now has most of the power in the USA. That's a big problem. Anyway, to get back to the story, when you cast your vote, we need a record of what happened to your vote. Now, if you mailed it in, you had a envelope, and you had a ballot that you stuffed in the envelope. You fill out the ballot that it's got the names of the people you're voting for. You fill it out, you put it in the envelope, and then you sign your signature on the back. Doesn't that seem a little strange? So some person you don't know gets your ballot, opens up the envelope because your ballot's inside, takes out the ballot. Now they've got the envelope with your signature on the back of it, and they have the ballot. Doesn't that seem like a problem? Envelope with your signature, and this is your ballot. You don't think that person can put those together and say, oh, this person voted this way? So you're voting, in case you didn't know this, is supposed to be anonymous. Doesn't sound very anonymous, does it? Anyway, that's just the tip of the iceberg, what I just told you. The much bigger problem is we're supposed to have a protocol that people at polling locations follow. And remember, polling locations are staffed by volunteers. Now, hopefully they're paid, but no matter what they're paid, it's not enough. But that's not even the main issue. The main issue is the poll workers are human. So even if the poll workers were all saints, they're still human. But we know that the people who work in the polling stations, most of them are partisans. That's why when you're conducting an election, you should have a system of checks and balances. And what does that mean? I think the votes should be counted by Republican, Democrat, and Independent. That is, there should be three people: a Republican, a Democrat, and an Independent should be overseeing every vote that's counted. There should be someone there, three people watching each other. So three people, and they're all keeping an eye on each other. And the reason I say that is because usually three people, that's usually enough. Though maybe we need four, maybe we need more than three, I don't know. But usually the more people you have who are keeping an eye on each other, who are trying to maintain integrity in a system, the more people you have, the more opportunities for one of them to defect if there's corruption and expose the corruption. Anyway, so to get back to the story, chain of custody is very, very simple. There's supposed to be a record: who received your ballot, who counted your ballot, where did they put your ballot, was it a manual counting of your ballot or a machine count, and then what did they do with your ballot? Was your ballot transported? That is, you could have two. There's a video on the internet of a woman who did a great video. She was, I think, she was someone who was assigned to work at a polling station to check and watch what they were doing to make sure they were following the rules. And she used her camera phone to video someone at 3 a.m. in, I think it was Pennsylvania, pulling up in a truck. I think it was an unmarked truck, getting tons of votes out of the back of the truck and wheeling them into the polling center. The problem is, it was just one person. I don't want one person transporting ballots. Again, don't we need checks and balances? Don't we need somebody watching the transfer? So if there's a transporter, a person picking up and the ballots and delivering them somewhere, don't we need someone to watch that person to make sure no shenanigans? So I'll give you an example. So let's say there's someone at location A somewhere in Pennsylvania. They pick up 200,000 ballots at location A, and those ballots have to be transported to location B where they're going to be tabulated. And so they pick up 200,000 ballots. When they drop off the ballots, again, let's say there's only one person. There should be more than one. I think there should be three. But that person drops off the ballots. And again, hopefully they didn't stuff them in the back of their Chevy Camaro. Hopefully there's a government vehicle, and it's labeled. It's a marked government vehicle picking up the ballots. And when they drop off those 200,000 ballots, all of a sudden at location B, they drop off 240,000 ballots. Well, that means between location A and location B, 40,000 ballots were added to the total. Or maybe it's the reverse. Maybe somebody picks up 200,000 ballots at location A, and when they drop off those 200,000 at location B, it's actually only 160,000. So somehow, we're missing 40,000 ballots. The point is, we need integrity. We need a chain of custody. We need a record: who picked up the ballots, what time. Did they pick them up at 11:33 p.m. or 1:44 a.m.? What time did they pick them up? And how many ballots did they pick up? And what vehicle did they use? Give us the license plate number of the vehicle they used. And what was the name of the person who picked them up? And again, there should be more than one. The idea that one person picks up truckloads of ballots and moves them around, that's a bad idea. But yet we have video of it happening. So again, when they go to location B to drop off these 200,000 ballots, we need the name of the person who received the ballots. The point is, the chain of custody is a protocol document. It tells us who has been in contact with your vote, with your ballot, and where your ballot currently resides. And the reason I say where your ballot currently resides is because by federal law, when there's an election, for the next 18 months, those ballots have to be maintained by every place in the USA. That is, every single polling or every single vote that was counted in November 2020 has to be accounted for, because it has to be stored for 18 months. Why? Just in case we need to do an audit. There's a federal law that says you have to hold on to those ballots for 18 months after the conclusion of an election. And guess what? It hasn't been 18 months, And because we have what do we have? A chain of custody problem. And what is the problem that we have? Well, there are signatures missing. There are dates and times and locations missing on these documents. Basically, what it boils down to is a large percentage of votes that were counted in November of 2020. Well, we don't know where they're at, and we don't know how many people touched them, how many people looked at them, how many people transported them, how many people tabulated them. Well, for all we know, there were votes that were counted, instead of being counted once, they were counted 20 times. I think we do have evidence. Lots of votes got counted 17 times. I mean, that's just one example. But the point is, we don't have the information by law. By law, we're supposed to have a chain of custody document which doesn't have gaps, which doesn't have missing data. And what we're discovering in Georgia, in Arizona, and I'm certain we will discover this all over the country. If we ever get around to doing an audit in other states, we will discover a chain. And you know why there's a chain of custody problem? For plausible deniability. No one can be held accountable if there's missing data, because we don't know who screwed up. We don't know who messed up. We don't know if the data was falsified. We don't know whose name was left off, because by definition the name is missing. So we don't know whose name is supposed to be there. And if it's a location, we don't know what. So when you have missing information on chain of custody documents, you've basically invalidated the election. We already know the election's been it should be invalidated simply because of the mailing out a ballot to every address in America. Steven Crowder, who's got a channel on YouTube, and he's got his own website, just a ragtag bunch of people got the public voter rolls in Nevada and started knocking on doors. They found out that every time they knocked on a door or went to an address of a person who had cast a vote, it was a fake. The addresses were parking lots. They were intersections. They were the addresses of torn down buildings. Their addresses where no one had lived for 30 years. So there was obviously a problem in Nevada, and the registrar in Nevada, as they were doing these videos on YouTube and their website, the Secretary of State in Nevada was altering the data at the same time they were presenting these videos. Why? It's called a cover-up. It's called trying to hide your culpability. Tried to hide what was going on in Nevada. And you and I know it wasn't just Nevada or Arizona or Georgia. Every swing state, and probably every state in the union has a problem with chain of custody, meaning we don't have a reliable, accurate reading of all the votes that were counted, who counted them, where they were counted, and where they ended up. We do not have accurate. Now, some of them we do, but a significant. So far, I think in Arizona, I think it's like 20 to 25% of the votes don't have a chain of custody document that's a reliable document, that it's an integrity-driven integrity document. So there you go. But you and I already know the election in Nevada wasn't, like I said, we already know it was unconstitutional because of the way it was performed. The executive branch, with the permission of the judicial branch, said we can violate the Constitution because of COVID-19. There's no provision in the Constitution that says, oh, if somebody might get the flu, you can completely throw out everything we put in the Constitution. There's no provision for that. So, like I said, it boils down to, we already know just that alone invalidates it. But now we know the chain of custody is exposing the massive corruption. So we haven't, what do we have? It's like the Vichy government in France in 1942. We have an occupational government in the United States of America. Joe Biden is an occupational governor for International Marxism, the Chamber of Commerce, and George Soros. We have an invalid government. Not maybe. It's not a maybe. There's a 100% objective reality certainty. Simply, like I said, by the unconstitutional nature. But now we're starting to get the evidence. And the chain of custody gives us that evidence we all suspected was there, which is nobody kept an accurate record of what was happening in November 2020, and that was on purpose. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Take care, and fight for your freedom and your right to vote. Take care. Bye-bye.